Spencer here. Fire! Boom!
teleporter here. Need a dispenser here. I broke your stupid crap, moron. Little help. Hey, good job. Need a dispenser here. Need a dispenser here. No. Wait, no.
Got blood on my suit. We need a dispenser right here.
Need a dispenser here.
Need a dispenser here. Need a dispenser here. Bloody go! dispenser here. There's a sentry here. There's a dispenser here.
Additional time.
We need a dispenser right here.
Medic, me muero, medic.
No te veo, boludo. No sé, ¿dónde estás?
Ya está.
Let's go, let's go, let's go!
Put dispenser here. Need a dispenser here. Deploy a dispenser here. Today is a good day. Need a Help! Put dispenser. Put dispenser here. Deploy it. Need a dispenser here. Negatory. Deploy it. Medic. Thanks, soldier. Deploy a dispenser here. Take charge!
Basta.
Turn, gentlemen. Boys, we have a traitor. Deploy a dispenser here.
Time has been added.
Vamos a entrar al camino y hacer onda más arena todo, boludo.
Put dispenser here. Incoming!